something wrong.
We are talking Amityville Ripper. And with all these Amityville films, I have to have a little bit of a disclaimer for anyone who may not realise the significance of the Amityville name. So you may have heard plenty of movies called Amityville something. There has been a plethora of movies called Amityville something or other, because Amityville is a real place in America, therefore it can't be copyrighted, so anyone can make an Amityville movie and put whatever they want with it. There has been an enormous amount so far. So it's a good way of getting brand recognition without having to pay for any type of, you know, rights or kind of copyright problems and things like that. That is why we get so many Amityville movies. That being said, what is Amityville Ripper all about? Well, this is a low-budget horror comedy, and effectively it's about these two goth girls who are obsessed with Jack the Ripper, and they buy a knife from an online auction that apparently belongs to Jack the Ripper, or belonged, that was kept in the Amityville house, and the contents of the Amityville house have been auctioned off and things like this. So they get this knife in hopes of doing a kind of a séance to communicate with Jack the Ripper. They have to do it on the night of this kind of like New Year's Eve party, and they inevitably do contact him, but in a far more dangerous manner than they expect, where the kind of the now resurrected Jack the Ripper is cutting his way through the partygoers. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So this is put out by SRS Cinema, which is a kind of a very low budget kind of horror comedy B-movie production company out of the States. And they put out a lot of like Mark Polonia level kind of style movies, is the best way I would describe it. Very, very low budget, very schlocky, very grindhouse. Never really kind of like any sort of serious kind of movies that I remember seeing from them anyway. There might be one or two, but yeah, they're mostly kind of like silly schlock ultimately, and this one is no different. What can we say that works in this movie's favour? So if you are familiar with any of the Amityville style movies or SRS Cinema, you probably have an idea about what to expect. This movie is not taking itself seriously at all. And there is plenty of kind of like comedic moments in the film. Do they work? Are they for you? Well, comedy is somewhat of a subjective art form, so therefore, you know, it's difficult to say for everyone. But there's a lot of kind of like fourth wall breaks in this movie. Things, you know, you've seen it like the movies like Deadpool, for example, where our characters talk directly to the audience and things like this, and interact with the director and actually on screen as part of the kind of the story. So there is a little bit of a kind of a fun element to that, which gives it a somewhat of a kind of unique sort of flavour to it, and obviously a very kind of tongue-in-cheek movie. If you like goth girls, our main sort of two characters, these two kind of goth girls who are our kind of protagonists, and they have quite like their relationship, to be fair. One of them is kind of like very much into the kind of the goth lifestyle, and the other one you think maybe isn't quite as much. She's quite interested in going to this kind of New Year's Eve party, while the other one's like, oh, I hate people. And the other one kind of pretends like, yeah, I hate people too, but she secretly kind of wants to go and be social with everyone, but she's kind of betraying her goth roots by admitting it. So there is some kind of fun sort of like little character moments here and there. The movie is mercifully quite short and is filled with kind of bizarre imagery. So if you like the bizarre and obscure, you know, it might be one to go for. The beginning of the film has a lot of little these vignette type things, and I'm going to talk about them again in a minute. Again, they're a little bit all over the place and bizarre, but if you like randomness, check it out. For a clearly low budget movie with probably not professional actors, I didn't think some of the acting was all that bad, if I'm completely honest. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is perfectly acted. It is a silly movie, very low budget, but I did think some of the kind of the actors were suited to that kind of style of movie. That is what I'm saying. Okay, but let's talk about what doesn't work. Now, this movie, like a lot of the SRS movies that I have reviewed, are knowingly crappy films. And you might want to watch this, ironically, as a kind of, you know, silly, stupid movie that you can whack on and enjoy for some crappy entertainment. And if you want to do that, that is fine. But realistically, let's talk about this with an actual critical eye. Is this entertaining? Let's be honest. I mean, it's clearly such a low budget film. That can potentially still be entertaining. Was I entertained? Have to be honest with you, not really. With the budget and that kind of style of filmmaking in mind, why not? Well, I mentioned this movie has these kind of like little vignettes at the beginning of the film, or these little shorts. And I suspect this is kind of like contributors to the crowdfunding campaign that was probably for this movie, with the kind of being, so you donate so much and you can have a small role in the movie. And so they've got all these little kind of vignettes, I mean, this is my speculation, that have nothing to do with the actual kind of story and just kind of random little kind of segments with people talking a load of old shite, if I'm honest. Now, is that fun for me as a viewer to watch? No, it isn't. It's like watching someone else's holiday footage that I don't know who they are. I'm sure it's great for the people that were involved, but for a person watching this cold, I'm thinking, why am I watching this? It's nothing to do with the actual movie, and it's just a load of old random crap. Sorry, it does not make for a fun viewing experience, in my opinion. Once we get that out of the way, we actually look at the kind of the story in the main. What can we say about that? Well, I have to be honest, even though this is relatively short running time, our Ripper character doesn't turn up until 40 minutes into the film. That's 40 minutes of a very, very low budget movie with little plot, kind of amateurish acting, without much in regards to production value. You know, that's an episode of, you know, a kind of standard sort of TV show. So imagine that, you know, as the kind of the preamble to the actual kind of like point of the story, the Ripper from the Amityville house. It's not interesting. It is not interesting. 10 minutes of that would have been sufficient, I think. 40 minutes? Boy. Even the kind of the looking at the camera and kind of breaking the fourth wall is overdone. It's done to the point where it's like, okay, we've done that joke now. We've done it a few times. You know, now it feels like you're beating a dead horse. So that they overused some of the kind of the tropes. It was funny a couple of times, and it was cute a couple of times, but it's overused. And then even some of the kind of like the air quote jokes, again, it's subjective. Personally speaking, it was just a bit lame, I thought, to be honest. Then the actual Ripper himself, he's kind of more play for laughs than anything else. Not a particularly interesting Ripper. Again, this is meant to be a joke film, to be honest, but it wasn't much better once our Ripper turns up, to be honest. We never really get any attempt at kind of gore here. There's a little bit of a brief nudity in like a shower scene. But yeah, the Ripper character I didn't think was particularly well kind of put together, and more or less just a kind of like a joke character. There's one shot which I thought was kind of like, had some reasonable kind of like cinematography in it, but for the most part it wasn't all that interesting, even when our killer turns up, which was way too long in the film. So I know the SRS Cinema market is there. It's relatively small. but I suspect people might enjoy it. For me, you know, you can watch this ironically and laugh at the rubbish film. Look at this crappy looking film, but to me, I don't know, it just wasn't enough. It wasn't clever enough to be entertaining, even with the kind of the crappiness of it. One or two elements here that I thought, you know, had potential, but overall, I found this movie incredibly tedious. Sorry, you know, for those fans of you like SRS stuff. I've watched a few of their stuff, and I wouldn't. Some of them sound quite cool, but I'm thinking, oh god, I don't want to put myself through it. But there you go, 3 out of 10. A couple of okay elements that they've introduced, and then just kind of stretched out and killed any kind of enthusiasm I had about the things I did like. 3 out of 10 is the best I can do with this one. Have you seen Amityville Ripper? Please do let me know what your thoughts are, and I shall look forward to see you next time.